Hello and welcome into this week's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind show right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, consider going down below to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. On today's Cup Rewind, we're looking back at Sunday's 26th annual Big Machine Vodka 400 at the Brickyard, presented by Florida Georgia Line. 160 laps, 400 miles around the 2.5 mile Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Speedway, Indiana. Now, as I talked about in a few videos earlier this week, I had a bit of a different view for this race than what I normally have. I was a spotter for one of the pit reporters on the radio broadcast. If you heard anything from Ryan Marine on pit road on this race, some of those reports came from info I had fed him from drivers that he wasn't able, because you end up as a pit reporter, you cover such a large swath of pit road that there's just too many competitive cars in that stretch that you can keep an eye on in one pit cycle. Usually, if it's a green flag pit cycle and not everybody's pitting on the same lap, usually you can kind of run around and keep everything in check. But if everybody's coming down and pitting on one caution, that's too many people to keep an eye on. So you need a spotter to kind of see the pit stops that you can't quite see. So that's what I was there for, and there were a few reports that if you listened on the radio broadcast that came from him that were from info that I had fed him. So that was really fun to do. First time I had ever been a spotter for a pit reporter, and that was a blast. Different view than I've ever had of the Brickyard 400. I've been there as media a couple times back in college, but wasn't really quite the same view as this was. So being that my view was a little bit different, my opinion on this race may be slightly different than A, what you were expecting, and B, maybe what your opinion on this race was. I didn't think this was a half-bad race. Was this a great race? No. Was this one of the best Brickyard 400s ever? Maybe. I mean, really, you look back through, and there's never really been fantastic racing in the Brickyard 400. I don't know that you can ever look at one specific Brickyard 400 and go, oh, that race was fantastic. They had fantastic racing all throughout the 160 laps, and it was awesome. I don't know that you can pinpoint one Brickyard 400 and say that. So given that, this might be one of the best Brickyard 400s. I don't know. I don't know that I would quite put it up that high, but I think this was a good race. We had a lot of... Passing was very, very difficult, which is a problem with current NASCAR as a whole. It doesn't matter what package you put out there, whether it's this 2019 package, whether it's any previous package. With this Gen 6 car, air just makes it almost impossible to pass, especially on tracks like Indianapolis. Indianapolis kind of highlights that. But that being said, there was a lot happening in this race. There was a lot of drama around the playoff bubble. There were a lot of crazy incidents that happened in this race. One crazy incident involving Brad Keselowski that we'll get to in a few moments. There was so much happening in this race that the racing on track, once we got into a green flag sequence, wasn't that great. It was pretty good there for the first couple laps after a restart, and then everybody kind of strung out, and it wasn't fantastic usually. But I think there was enough happening in this race that it wasn't a half-bad race. So let's go ahead and get into the caution flags in this race. 9 of them total for 48 laps in this race. First one came out at lap 12 for fluid on the track. Lap 43, the 0-0 of Landon Castle wrecks in turn 1. Very hard hit into the outside wall for Landon Castle, and this one, glad to see he was okay. Another hard hit at lap 50. This was when Brad Keselowski and Eric Jones got together off turn 2. Keselowski ends up spinning off of turn 2 into a tire barrier on the inside wall. There's a wall that kind of juts out there on the inside, right at the end of the access road as that empties out into the backstretch. There's a wall that kind of juts out off the inside wall. Just past that, there's a tire barrier on there. Keselowski ends up hitting that and actually, with the way he hit the tires, it throws the car up on the side. And actually, that was crazy in the moment, because sitting there as a spotter, just having to listen to the radio broadcast doing all of this, Nick Yeoman, who we had up in turn 2 for this race, with the view that he had and all the smoke, when he saw that car flip on its side, he thought Keselowski had actually rolled over, which would have been completely crazy. I don't know that we've ever had a car flip at Indy in a NASCAR race. So that would have been a storyline in and of itself. Flipping up onto its side is one thing. Rolling over is another thing. So good to see Keselowski could walk away from that one, as that was definitely a very hard hit into that tire barrier. That ended up being the Stage 1 conclusion, as we did not get back to green flag before the end of Stage 1, and Joey Logano took the Stage 1 victory. Lap 90, Kyle Busch blows his engine and ends up stopping. I think he made it onto pit road and then ends up stopping on pit road because there was flames coming out of the right front. He just wanted to get out of the car. Lap 97, debris in turn 2, and that ends up being the Stage 2 conclusion, with Kevin Harvick taking the Stage 2 victory. Lap 106, multi-car incident in turn 2, instigated by Jimmy Johnson getting loose under his teammate William Byron, and that set up a big incident in turn 2 and wrecked Jimmy Johnson's playoff hopes. And that ends an era. Jimmy Johnson has been in every postseason since the advent of the chase and the playoffs back in 2004, and this will be the first year that he is not in the playoffs because of this wreck. Also involved in the incident, the 1 of Kurt Busch, the 21 of Paul Menard, the 24 of William Byron, the 37 of Chris Buescher, the 8 of Daniel Hemrick, the 96 of Parker Kligerman, and the 36 of Matt Tifft. Lap 130, the 42 of Kyle Larson wrecks off of turn 2. He had a hard hit into the inside wall as well. Good to see he could walk away from that one as well. Lap 136, Alex Bowman wrecks off of turn 2. And final caution of the day, lap 148, as the 36 of Matt Tifft wrecked in turn 1. And that was really disappointing to see. It was actually a really good day for Matt Tifft. He was running up there right around 10th at that point. Definitely the best run he has had in a cup race. Outside of a plate race, he might have had a decent run at Daytona or Talladega. I don't remember. But if you take the plate races out of the equation, this is definitely the best run he's had in that 36 car. And it was disappointing to see that go up in flames with about 10 laps left in the race. 13 lead changes among 8 drivers. Kevin Harvick wasn't even close, led the most laps. 118 of the 160 laps went to Kevin Harvick. 19 laps were led by Ryan Blaney. 11 laps went to Joey Logano. 5 laps to Kyle Larson. 4 laps led by Jimmy Johnson. 1 lap apiece went to William Byron, Paul Menard, and Ross Chastain. All right. So let's get into your results from this race. Like I said, fairly crazy race. Joey Logano won stage number 1 and led a decent amount of laps in this race, 11, with Kevin Harvick leading the most laps. There wasn't many laps left to lead at that point, but did win stage 1 and led 11 laps. Harvick won stage 2 and led the most laps with 118. So who would come out on top in this one? It seems like it's set up to be a very Kevin Harvick day, with him winning stage 2 and leading the most laps, and he would take home his second Brickyard 400 victory in this race. It wasn't even close. He clearly had the fastest car in this race. That Mobil 1.4, there was nobody touching him in this race. At one point, on a restart, Ryan Blaney did get around Harvick and was able to pull away from him. And I think that exemplified how much of a premium Clean Air was at. Because up to that point, no one was even close to touching Kevin Harvick. But all Blaney had to do was clear Harvick, and he could pull away from him. But then once Harvick retook the lead after that, off of the next restart, nobody could touch him after that point. So I think that just really exemplifies how important Clean Air is right now. And and honestly kind of how much of a problem it is, because that shouldn't be, having the lead and having clean air shouldn't be that important. It shouldn't make you so OP that nobody can do anything with you, even if they have a car that is fairly similar to yours in speed. If they have a car that's fairly similar to yours in speed, they should be able to race with you. But unfortunately, with the way this car is set up right now, you just can't do that at most tracks. And it's very unfortunate to see, because I feel like we've been robbed of some decent racing at some of these races because of how this Gen 6 car is set up. Joey Logano did come home in the second position. Shout out to Bubba Wallace. A fantastic run at the end of the race. Dropped him in the third position. And clearly the best run for that 43 car this season. I believe coming into this race, his best finish this season was in 14th. So improving on that tenfold, and just a fantastic run out of Bubba Wallace. Hopefully this is a sign of things to come in the future. I know Worldwide Technology really doubled down on their sponsorship with the Richard Petty Motorsports Group. And again, if you're not aware, when you see Victory Junction on that car, that's actually being paid for by Worldwide Technology. That's kind of a partnership Worldwide Technology made with Victory Junction. So generally, when you see Victory Junction on that car, it's actually technically a Worldwide Technology sponsorship. So Worldwide Technology has really stepped up with that car. Worldwide Technology actually had their name on the car this week, not Victory Junction. But hopefully that Worldwide Technology money is paying dividends at that Richard Petty Motorsports team, because I think with the right equipment underneath him, Bubba Wallace can be extremely competitive in the Cup Series. William Byron came home with a strong fourth place finish, even after getting caught up in that Jimmy Johnson incident in the middle of the race, and Clint Boyer rounded out the top 5 to solidify his spot in the playoffs. Rest of your top 10, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Ryan Newman also securing a spot in the playoffs with an 8th place finish. Chase Elliott in 9th, and Paul Menard, who started on the outside pole, rounded out the top 10. 11th through 20th. 11th, not good enough for Daniel Suarez, as he just misses the cut for the playoffs. Did finish 6th in Stage 2 to pick up some stage points, but unfortunately not enough, with Newman finishing 5th in the first stage and finishing 8th overall in the race. That was enough for Newman to make it into the playoffs. Eric Almirola landed in the 14th position. 21st through 30th, Alex Bowman down here in the 21st position. Martin Truex had a very off day. 4 laps down, he got into trouble very early and never could recover from it. 27th on the day for Martin Truex. And Kurt Busch down here in 30th. He had some troubles in the middle of the race as well. He was 5 laps down at the end of it in 30th. Final page, 31st through 40th. Ricky Stenhouse in 31st. Kyle Larson, 33rd. Jimmy Johnson had a really fast car. I think maybe under the right circumstances possibly could have challenged for the win at the end of the race had he been there. Had one of the faster cars in the field, and unfortunately was not able to make it to the end of the race. 35th for Jimmy Johnson, and he is eliminated from playoff contention. Kyle Busch, after his engine issues, came home in 37th. Brad Keselowski, after his scary incident, came home in 38th. And Eric Jones down here 39th after getting involved in that incident with Brad Keselowski. So that's your results from the Big Machine Vodka 400 at the Brickyard. So let's head over to the Media Center. We will see what Kevin and his team had to say after this win.
Yeah, I mean, the Brickyard 400 is something that means a lot to all of us, and the history that has went on here for so many years. And back when I was still racing go-karts, I would race on Friday night, Saturday night, and I would sit on the couch at home on Sundays and watch these Cup races. And I remember when Jeff Gordon won the first one there, and I actually cried because he won. But it's just so crazy to come back here and to win this thing. And since we started with the 4-team, this has been one that's been circled on our list every year. Obviously, it's a big race. It's something that means a lot to all of us. Something that you'll remember for years. And we have been fast every single year, and we've just never been able to put it together. And we've had little issues here or there or whatever. And today it just felt right. It felt right from the day that from the minute I woke up, and to qualify up front and to have a great race car today. I think y'all saw in the first practice we weren't very good, and the car was way too loose, and we had to work on it. And it was one of those weekends where everything went right. We never made a bad adjustment in practice, and never made a bad adjustment today. And those are the weekends that sometimes they just happen. And just thankful to be sitting here. Told somebody a minute ago, I got to get a Daytona 500 now. To win a championship before, and a Coke 600 and a Southern 500 and a Brickyard 400. I may just work on Speedway cars all winter and try to knock out a Daytona 500. So just really thankful.
Yeah, we just go to so many unique racetracks throughout the summer. I don't know if that's what you said, but I think we've definitely made some strides in getting where we closer to where we want to be. I think we still have some things that we have to work on at certain styles of racetracks, but this is survive and advance, and you don't necessarily have to have the fastest car. We had the fastest car today, maybe not the best handling car, but we survived. And really a day like today is a lot like how you're going to have to approach every race in the playoffs. And so, we've been to Las Vegas, and it's unbelievable how far things have advanced and changed. And I still feel like we're learning a lot about this particular rules package at certain types of racetracks. And we've been changing things and working on things, and there's a lot of little things that you put together to start the playoffs that you put through the manufacturing side and the engine side, and the 100 other things that you put together, and you just have to execute at this point. It's really about the details of how you go through practice and how you start the race, and what you do when things are wrong and what you do when things are right, and it's just covering those details, and it's a 1 week at a time grind. I don't think today's race sends a message to anybody other than we are doing a good job over the last few months of on the days when we have cars that are capable of winning. We've been getting good finishes out of them and been to victory lane a few times over the last 3 months. So that's the most important thing is that, I think for us, we have a lot of confidence in each other and the things that we're doing right now. And sometimes that's more important than fast cars.
All right, so let's take a look at your playoff grid before wrapping up here tonight. It is set, and we are ready to get into the playoffs this week at Las Vegas. Daniel Suarez missed this by 4 points. That's how close he was. Remember, he and Newman came into this race tied in points. So really could have gone either way, and really I think we all knew it was going to come down to stage points for the most part. And 4 points could have been gained or lost with stage points in this race. So I think that's what it ultimately ended up coming down to in this race. But your 16 playoff drivers this season, Kyle Busch, your regular season champion, he sits at the top with a 44-point gap on 13th headed into this. He starts off with 2,045 points. Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman, Eric Jones, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, and Ryan Newman will be your 16 playoff drivers for the 2019 season. Now, as I did with the trucks, I'm going to go through here and kind of pick out who I think are probably going to be eliminated in the first round. And this is a little tougher than the trucks because we're eliminating 4 drivers in the first round rather than 2 like we do in the truck series. I think the gimmies in the first round, I think Ryan Newman, Sorry to the Ryan Newman fans out there, but I think he's kind of a gimme. I think he's out in the first round. It's a big accomplishment for that team to even be in the playoffs with where that 6 car has been the last couple of years, and quite frankly, with where his teammate still is. Stenhouse currently 21st in points. I think that's just an accomplishment in itself that that 6 car even made the playoffs. I think they are out in the first round. After that, it gets a little tougher to decide who's out in the first round. I think Boyer makes it to the second round. He's been strong enough lately that I don't think he gets eliminated in the first round. We'll see how he looks in the second round, but I think he's safe in the first round. Eric Almirola, I think with how his performance lately has been, I think Eric Almirola gets eliminated in the first round. I just haven't seen strong enough performances out of that 10 car lately to say he makes it to the round of 12, which is sad given that he made the round of 8 last year in his first year in that car, but SHR as a whole is not quite as strong this year as they were last year. So I think Eric Almirola, Ryan Newman are 2 of the first 4 out in the playoffs. I think your third driver out after the first round is going to be Alex Bowman. And I know that might surprise some people given that he has a win so far this year, but outside of that win at Chicago, it's not been a super strong season for that 88 car. I think they get eliminated in the first round. And then your fourth driver eliminated in the first round. This one's tough because I don't know that there's a clear 4 drivers in this playoff that are your clear bottom 4. I think there's clearly a bottom 1 or 2, but after that, there's a very large midfield in this playoff. You've got some very clear upper echelon drivers, I guess we'll call them, in this playoff, and we've got a very clear couple of bottom feeders in this playoff. But really, everybody else in the middle, it could really go any direction with these guys in the middle. So it's very hard to pick right now, but I think your fourth driver out in the first round is going to be Kyle Larson. They have been stronger as of late, but I just, with the way the competition is in this playoff, I just don't see him getting past the first round. Now, that being said, with what we were just talking about, with how close this whole mid-pack is in the playoffs, honestly, it's very possible Larson could be out in the first round, and it's very possible he could make it to the championship 4. That's how murky and fluid this playoff grid is right now. You don't really know who's gonna get too far. I think we've got a couple drivers pegged down very clearly that will be in the championship 4 unless something weird happens. But outside of that, I don't know that it's very clear how far very many of these drivers make it in the playoffs. It's very up in the air. And honestly, it will be quite fun to see what actually happens here because, I mean, when everybody's kind of that close and uncertain, it makes it kind of exciting to watch because you really don't know what's going to happen. I think we had a little bit clearer of a playoff picture last year as to who was going to make it how far for the most part. I really don't know that we have that this year, and that's honestly kind of exciting. But that is your playoff grid following the Big Machine Vodka 400 at the Brickyard, and I believe that'll do it for us on this Cup Series Rewind. Apologies on no Xfinity Rewind yesterday. Actually had some internet problems last night and just couldn't do it. I couldn't pull up results to actually have them in front of me to record it, and then couldn't upload it either. So it was just all kinds of a mess last night. So I do apologize for that. And I was actually very disappointed by that because I thought the Xfinity race was actually pretty good, and I think it was better than the Cup race. And I actually wanted to talk about it, and then just didn't get a chance to. So that was kind of a bummer. But no, Xfinity Rewind hasn't gone anywhere. I know we haven't done it now for, 2 or 3 weeks? But it hasn't gone anywhere. It's just, for one reason or another, haven't been able to do it for 2 or 3 weeks now. But hopefully we'll be able to get back into the swing of that on the next Xfinity race. Diecast review coming up on Wednesday as usual. Should be Joey Logano's Homestead win this week. I believe that's going to show up in time, so we should have that for this week's Diecast review. And then we've got Vegas coming up this weekend, start of the playoffs for the Cup Series, final regular season race for Xfinity, and then playoff race for the trucks as well. And ARCA's in Salem on Saturday night for the Fall Classic there in Salem, the yearly throwback race. We've already had a couple of throwbacks unveiled for that one. We've got some cool ones that we're going to be seeing on track for that as well. So I'm excited for that one. Of course, we'll be at the track for that, as we are with most ARCA races. So definitely be looking out for some coverage from that this coming weekend. So if you haven't done it already, you need to go down below, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. While you're down there, why don't you hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It is much appreciated when you do. But at that, this has been the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.